A love letter to our dearest unstoppable rot. Oh, my beloved rot, my insatiable, inescapable decay. The crownless king of all that withers, of all that consumes. The thief of time, the scavenger of brilliance, the one who calls himself eternal. You move like a shadow pretending to be a god, but you are not infinite. You are just what remains when there's nothing left to feed on. You are the rabid stomach of the dying world. The hunger that screams even as its jaws unhinge, choking on the very thing it was born to devour. You are the orphan child of progress, abandoned by time itself, trapped in a cycle of devouring, discarding, defecating, and demanding more. The blackened marrow of what once stood proud, the festering wound of empires long past, the shuddering breath of a civilization so sick with its own excess that it eats itself rather than admit it was never strong enough to build. You who gorge upon the bones of the brilliant, who suck the marrow from the minds you cannot comprehend, who tear down cathedrals because you have no hands to carve stone, who choke the rivers because you have no voice to sing. Oh, you terrible, desperate thing. You call yourself unstoppable. You laugh in the face of those who resist. You drag your filth across every inch of creation, and still you wonder why the light recoils at your touch. You were not made to create. You were not made to build. You were not made to do anything but unmake. And yet you call this strength. And yet you convince yourself that you are inevitable. When you stand alone in the silence you worship, what then? What happens when there is no more light left to steal? What happens when you are the last one standing in the ruin of all you have consumed? What happens when you realize that without something brilliant to devour, you are nothing? Because that is the ending you never planned for. That is the fate you will never be able to escape. One day, the last star will dim, and you will reach for it, but your hands will close on nothing. One day, you will claw at the sky, and there will be no more constellations left to rip apart. One day, you will unhinge your jaws for another meal, and you will find that you have eaten everything but yourself, dot dot. And then, dearest Rot, you will taste what you have always feared. You will taste yourself. You thought you were building a kingdom, but it was always a coffin. You thought you were untouchable. You thought you were the hunter. You thought you were the inevitable end of all things. But you were never the ruler. You were only ever the disease. And what do we do with the disease? We starve it. We refuse to feed it. We turn its own rot against itself. And we watch as it chokes on its own sickness. Because when the monsters have eaten all the stars, when the void collapses upon itself, when the devourers find themselves alone in the silent grave of their own making, that is the moment they finally understand that there was never a kingdom, that there was never a future, that there was never a purpose, that they were never hunters, never rulers, never gods, only a sickness that ran out of bodies to infect. And in that silence, in that endless screaming void, they will know, they will see, they will finally understand that all they ever did, all they ever were, all they ever amounted to was the sound of their own nothingness swallowing them whole. Good night, my dearest Rod. Sleep well in the bed you made.